Boo. Hi, I'm in a different location. My parents' house has so much natural light, which is pretty good for filming, aside from the fact that I look like I'm in heaven. Um, it's an adjustment for me, though, because I prefer to live like an alm. So I'd say that I'm sorry for the hiatus, but I'm not. I was pretty busy graduating college, and then I was busy job searching. But I do want to make videos again. Like I said, I'm living at my parents' house right now, and that makes it not impossible, but more difficult to pester my friends and my partner, so I needed somebody to rant to. Lucky you. So I decided to make a sequel to my video where I read bad reviews of movies that I like on Letterboxd. People seem to enjoy that, and I enjoy that too. I think that I've cultivated a pretty good variety of films today. Some of them have problems, and some of them are flawless and above reproach. I did predict some of the reviews for Ravenous last time, so I think that I'm going to do the same this time, just like try to guess the problems that people have with these movies. Also I tried to decorate my set because this is my parents' living room, so none of my shit is in here, and my room is a disaster right now because it's filled with boxes and stuff from when I moved out of my apartment. We've got Stegosaurus from my baby days, and we've got the devil from hell. The devil's not really relevant to any of the movies today, but the Stegosaurus kind of is. My 90s Spock commemorative bear. We've also got Gracie the whale, which my partner made for me. Sound off in the comments if you've already guessed one of the movies that I'm going to be looking at today. Okay, let's get into it. First movie that I'm going to talk about is Secretary from 2002. This film whips. It's about Lee Holloway. She's been newly released from an inpatient facility, and she's trying to live an adult life despite nobody in her life treating her like one. She's this cringe fail autistic weird girl who starts working for fellow freak E. Edward Gray. Let's give it up for psychosexual James Spader movies. Hell yeah. He did so many of them. Anyway, Edward and Lee start a BDSM relationship. That's the plot of the movie, basically. I personally love this movie, and if you are 1, autistic or otherwise mentally ill, 2, into BDSM, or 3, both, I think that you will really find something of value in it. We're gonna speed run things I love about this movie. Body language performance is incredible. The Leonard Cohen needle drop had me foaming at the mouth. The colors and the overall design are great. Good portrayal of how BDSM can be a really good coping skill. And my favorite thing about it is that E. Edward Gray is not a slick, cool dom. He's so repressed and guilty about his sexual habits that it's sometimes painful to watch. Predictions of the reviews that I'm going to read. This shit is too freaky for me. This one's for the gooners. I'm predicting some hate for the scene where Lee pees herself, and a lot of people calling Lee desperate because they assume that she wants out of this relationship what they want out of the relationship. So, sort by lowest first. Here we go. This is a great one to kick us off with, I think. Apple J Juice just said, ew. A's Puffs XX says, I am disturbed. I will concede that this movie is often extremely uncomfortable, but that's more because of the fact that the two characters are just two extremely socially awkward people. Oh, editing key here. This next review mentions self-harm, because that's a feature in the movie, so if you can't handle that in the review or the movie, I would recommend skipping. I'm gonna put a timestamp for when I'm done with that. Oh gosh, here's a long one. So Kay gave it half a star and said, troubled man, blah blah blah, excuse for being cold and dismissive, typical BDSM relationship, I can fix him and get him to open up and love me trope. I hope he knows that I can see he suffers too and that I want to love him. That is a direct quote from the movie. Pick me, choose me, love me. Wish Lee would have chosen herself. Peeing herself in a dress at a desk to follow orders from her sadistic boss. Over a man. It is quite literally never that serious. All these male gaze, male dominance, woman submission, woman degradation movies are of course always created and directed by men. This genre of movies teeters the line between a kink and actual abuse. This is not a romance movie by any means, far from it. Lee was a vulnerable, mentally unstable woman who has a history of self-harm, and this entire situation of being punished and spanked gave her that same perceived hit she felt self-harming, and even more so, what she felt she was lacking after quitting self-harm. This entire BDSM dynamic was just another form of self-harm. Edward saw her tendency to self-harm, exploited it, and saw her as an easy target, preying upon her lack of confidence. Not to mention sexual harassment, the countless HR violations, hostile workplace, lack of ethics and morals in the workplace, and general unprofessionalism. Overstepping employer-employee typical code of conduct, regarding employers not dating subordinates through interpersonal relations inside and outside of the workplace. Him taking care of her at the end after neglecting her the entire movie does nothing. Okay, so I will concede that this movie has a bit of a view of BDSM that that a lot of people wouldn't necessarily take today. It's important to note that this BDSM dynamic does take place in the workplace. She's the titular secretary, after all. I really like this movie, and part of it is because the movie portrays the BDSM as incredibly relaxing and helpful for the main character. This is mostly what I was talking about in regards to body language. When Lee is in subspace, her body language, her sense of dress, her sense of holding herself is so entirely different than it usually is, and it's because she doesn't have to worry about anything except doing what she's told. In fact, BDSM is how she's able to quit self-harming, because she is able to explore some of this in a safe environment. Also, not for nothing, but I think it's really ridiculous to call this like E. Edward Grey is taking advantage of her, because wow, Lee is the most down bad for it that I have ever seen. And this isn't just like a, oh, she was asking for it type thing. She is thrilled. She's doing research about BDSM. She's so excited about it. She's having so much fun. She wants more of it. Throughout the majority of the movie, she isn't like vying for his approval or his love or his affection. She wants him to hit her, and good for her. One of the best parts of the movie is the only time she safe words, because the only time she safe words is when he hurts her feelings. And the reason that her feelings are hurt is because he tries to break it off, because he assumes that she's not in her right mind and that she can't make this decision for herself, which is something that everybody assumes because she's mentally ill and she's been inpatient. Everyone assumes that Lee doesn't know what's best for herself, including apparently the majority of people who watch this movie. Alright, Wax Doves, a pro, said, was so hyped for this movie, but it was so cringe. You don't understand it. No, I don't. Thanks. Well, then maybe it wasn't made for you. That's okay. Movies are made for other people. That's fine. 8 Bagel Bites, gave it half a star, but loved it, and said, little freak could have gone over permissions and treatment beforehand. I would argue that Secretary is better BDSM representation than 50 Shades of Grey, and they don't have the same kind of conversations that they have about this in 50 Shades of Grey. As much as I respect people trying to portray BDSM in this very straightforward, this is the right way to do it, sometimes that's not the fiction that I want to read or consume. Like, I know that this is how this works. Sometimes I want to watch these two people be really mean to each other. The way that Secretary approaches it as fictionalized, but also showing how it's good for the other characters and some of the like reservations that they have around it is great, and I love it. Oh no. The Bird Spot 2 gave it half a star and said, I really did not like this movie. It was weird. It was confusing. I watched it with my siblings. I can see how that would be a problem. Once again, I watched Rocky Horror Picture Show for the first time with my parents, so, like, I feel your pain. Ramoyes gave it half a star and said, shame on me for watching this. It's weird, uncomfortable, and honestly kind of says a lot about control and broken people finding each other in the worst way possible. Not to spoil this too much for you, but I would very much consider this movie to have a happy ending. It also ends with this, like, beautiful music video montage of, aftercare. There's, like, an aftercare room. It's awesome. Oh, Tessa. Tessa gave it half a star and said, well, 50 Shades of Grey was at least fun. No comment. Nor gave it half a star and said, big nuh-uh, straight male pleasure does nothing for me. I guess, yeah, it doesn't really do much for me either, but I would argue that a lot more of the film is about Lee seeking her own pleasure, unless you're one of the many people who believes that Lee is actually an egg and should transition into a man. but at that point, he would be a gay man. So I'm guessing that this says EC wins. I'm not sure. But they gave it half a star and said, only a guy, probably with a corn emoji addiction, could make a movie like this and call it a romantic comedy. Disgusting. Yeah, having a corn emoji addiction sounds really stressful. Chrissy Katz gave it half a star and said him picking her up after marinating in 3-day piss was insane. I think it's actually pretty cute. He brings her a protein shake, and then he carries her upstairs to
the aftercare chamber.
I don't know. I feel like this is just gonna keep getting repetitive. Everybody has the same shit to say about this movie. I don't know why I put it on here. I think it's just because I knew that it had like a lot of bad reviews. But this seems as good a place as any to end. Super Hedgehog 98 gave it half a star and said, what the hell? Okay, so the next one is Hoodwinked from 2005. So this one rocks too. The easiest thing to say about it is that the animation sucks. That's also the most boring observation. More importantly, it's a mystery about differences in point of view. My mom is actually a teacher and she loves to talk about how this would be a great way to introduce kids to point of view. I'm a sucker for like reincorporation and recontextualizing things. So getting to see like the same scenes multiple times from different points of view is always great fun for me. The cast is also stacked. The music is really fun. Oh, this is a musical, just so you know. Shout out JPeth. A lot of the music is so 2000s. That's a pretty good descriptor for this entire film, if we're being completely honest. It's definitely one of those early 2000s, fairy tales are pretty weird movies, but it doesn't feel like too jaded about it. Whatever, fuck you. I liked it as a kid. Okay, so predictions of the reviews are a bunch of people saying the animation sucks, because that's the easiest thing to say about it. And also these same people despairing that an actor that they like, who is like prestigious or whatever, was in a smaller film. This is a great place to start. Savannah Kay gave it half a star, and her review is, did I do? Artesia gave it half a star and said, what in salvation? The only impetus I can think for Artesia saying what in salvation is that she thought it was one of those like bootleg Christian propaganda CDs. Josh gave it half a star and said, I genuinely believe this movie was the genesis for the decline of animation and quality in children's media. It is one of the worst things I've ever seen. This is confusing to me because in many ways, I understand that. In many ways, the quality of animation has gone down, and like, if you look at the past few Disney movies, they all have a lot of same face syndrome and whatnot. But in many ways, I think that it's pretty good. There are plenty of animated things where I can like count the pores on people's faces. Of course, I miss like a lot of 2D animation, but there's lots of really well animated 2D movies that are still coming out. Not nearly as many as I would like, but like, you know. Boofosaurus gave it half a star and called it an $8 million money laundering scheme. Well, Boofosaurus, some children liked that $8 million money laundering scheme, okay? Cimarron gave it half a star and said, read my bio, I'm sick of this. And Cimarron's bio says, my biggest issue is that I'm so unpretentious, it's almost a character flaw. I'm not going to be rating shit under like 2 stars unless it's Hoodwinked, 2005, or stars Nick Cage. What's wrong with Nick Cage? I'm a Nick Cage defender. I'm surprised that there are still Nick Cage haters out there. Okay, Tony gave it half a star and said, holy shit, I cringed so fucking hard. If I can give this 0 out of 5 stars, I would. Yeah, I mean, not everything that was funny in 2005 is funny anymore, and also it's a movie for children. I'm not saying that a movie for children can't be of high quality, but I am saying that, like, kids laugh easier. There's plenty of stuff that I remember finding hysterical in it that I don't barely gets, like, a out of me now. Jesus. So Sam, a patron, gave it half a star and said, work of the devil. Am I missing something? Did like 1 million moms put a hit out on this movie? Okay, Daniel gave it half a star and a heart and said, this film is so bad it's good. I do love the whole crime thriller take on it though. Crime thriller take is really interesting to me because like that take is just the plot of the movie? I'm kind of confused by this. Are you saying that like you think that the way that it treats fairy tales is so bad it's good? Are you saying that the way that it is animated and voice acted is so bad it's good, because I think the voice acting is quite good. Whatever. Maybe I'm overthinking this. Can you tell I do that? Okay. K. Mizzle gave it half a star and said, Hoodwinked should be renamed Hood Stinked. The best thing about this movie was the photographer squirrel with ADHD and a coffee addiction. That's accurate. The animation was horrific. Maybe if I watched it high, it could be more enjoyable. I'll acquire some devil's lettuce for the first time and report back. Don't get high for the first time and watch Hoodwinked. You'll get scared. Just like by the character models. This is also confusing to me because, like, I don't hate the addition of Twitchy the squirrel, but it's not like an original addition. Oh, we have this squirrel character. We're going to make him super hyper, and like all over the place and have like a really high-pitched squeaky voice. That's kind of the archetypical squirrel in kids' movies, yeah? Where's the love for Japheth the goat? Hell yeah. Ryan Zermino gave it half a star and just said classic. Okay, so Samantha Morrison gave it half a star and said, fuck this movie, it deadass traumatized me as a kid, like I genuinely feel as if I was forced to watch this because I hated it. Well, I'm sorry that was your experience. Did you watch it again for this? Jackie Boy 1130 gave it half a star and said the song was catchy, but the choreography was terrible. No, the entire movie was terrible. Twitchy was the movie's only highlight. Once again, I feel like Twitchy is one of the least creative parts of this movie. Okay, this seems to be a good one to end on. It's Shawnee gave it half a star and said, who the fuck is responsible for this absolute piece of garbage movie? Their names are in the credits, and I'm sure that you probably watched the credits because it's got an absolute banger over them. I always watch through the credits just so I can listen to the song. Jesus Christ, I have never wanted to not watch an animated movie in my life. I literally wanted to stop watching this movie when they started explaining the grandma's side because it went from being unfunny to actively being cringe. Holy shit, I would never watch this movie again, and if I could rate it 0 out of 5, I would. Some of the stuff with the grandma's side is, a little cringe. I'm not disputing that. They made Glenn Close say the words faux shizzle, but also I don't dislike the grandma. I love her. I love that she has like a 90s extreme sports theme song. It's incredible. Okay, I think that's it. I'm gonna go take a little break to listen to the acclaimed song Critters Have Feelings from Hoodwinked 2005, and then I'll be back. Just kidding, we're moving on to the next movie now. However, Critters Have Feelings will be stuck in my head the rest of the time that I'm filming this. So, the next movie that I have picked on our little beautiful smorgasbord today is the movie Old Boy from 2003. What can I even say about this movie? If you're not aware, it's a South Korean action thriller, and it's sick nasty. Basically, this guy named Odishi is kidnapped and imprisoned for 15 years, and then one day, he's just released. And he doesn't know why either of these things happened. The whole movie is him finding out why, seeking revenge, and also kind of rediscovering what it means to have connection with other people, because he hasn't had any connection with other people for 15 years. We're gonna do another speed run of things I love. All the practical effects, particularly the wound effects. The music, it's almost like a westernish score. In fact, I have it on vinyl because I'm a pretentious fuck. You don't need to see the whole thing because you know what it is. Odisha's sunglasses, I think they're silly. The pretty thorough explanation of how isolation can turn somebody into an absolute freak. I wouldn't know anything about that. And, how fucked up it is. Call me an edgelord, it compels me. Oh, disclaimer, this movie has a pretty hefty spoiler that I'm sure that many reviews will mention. Also, another trigger warning, some of these reviews contain mentions of sexual assault. So if you want to continue unspoiled, I will put the timestamp up when I'm done talking about it. I would encourage you to watch this film unspoiled. I watched it spoiled, and I don't think it super diminished my appreciation of it. You know yourself better than I do. Disclaimer over. Okay, so some predictions for what I think the reviews will be. Complaining about how fucked up it is. Complaining about how weird the relationships are, not just because there's some incest, but also just because isolation has stunted these characters quite a lot. And calling it overrated garbage because lots of people have the nerve to like a thing. Oh my god! All Saints Lou gave it half a star and said overrated. The whole trama has 0 sense and unrealistic as fuck. I mean, it is a bit unrealistic. It's a movie. Davina gave it half a star and said too much makeout scenes. The mystery and plot twist was I disagree. I gotta disagree. Also truly not that many makeout scenes. I've gotta disagree. It's like I can remember maybe two? I don't know. This happened with The Fly too, where like there were two fairly brief sex scenes. Takes up like a tiny portion of the film, but people are still like clutching their pearls about it. I don't get it. Naurally gave it half a star and said, if you really want to waste 2 hours of your day and feel like vomiting after, go ahead. I don't know. It does make you want to vomit after, and it does make you feel just awful and icky and gross, and like that's the point, I fear. Burnt Popcorn 11 gave it half a star and said, can we not? But they already did. Like, it's out there. It's a piece of art. It's out there now. Oh. That's got a slur. Won't be reading that one. Okay, this one is actually interesting. Alex gave it half a star and said, this is one of those movies that makes you feel like agency will truly never be achieved for people that dare to be born women. The assault and trauma of women being used as devices to further the storyline of the grizzled male protagonist is an old and tired tradition of cinema. I don't care how good the directing or writing is when I'm watching women get beaten and thrown around and used just to what? Give the main character an edge? Be treated as a stepping stone through a man's journey that is also focused on other men? While she waits in the background and waits for him to get back to their bed so she can be nothing more than his and what he does to her? It's tiring. It's tiring and it's eternally frustrating, and I wish I could be so easily distracted by the gore or good direction or epic fight scenes, but I'm sorry, I'm not that gullible. I think that there's certainly something to be said about how what happens in this movie is, like, we see more of how it affects our main character. Odisha is horrified by this, and so much of the terrible things that happen at the end are because he is trying to stop her from learning this secret at any cost because it has just destroyed him. And it's not even necessarily out of a selfish desire to keep her for himself. It's more out of a desire to keep her from ever having to understand the pain of holding a secret like this. Much like I said about how the movie is made. It exists. It's out there. It exists as a work of art. What they have done is already done. They can't undo it. The revenge has been taken. And it's so terrible. And, like, there's a conversation to be had about, like, well, should he get to decide that for her? And I don't necessarily think that he should, but I understand why he wants to. And yes, there is, like, we do see some brutalization of Mito, but I wouldn't say that it's nearly as explicit as some other things that I've seen. Also, this kind of is part and parcel with the sort of westernish edge that the soundtrack is evoking. Frankly, there's a lot of assault in westerns, like a lot. Also, not for nothing, but this unfortunate sexual relationship also is in many ways a violation of Odishu. I don't think that it's good to call two characters having sex what he did to her. It's something that she also decided to take part in. I will say that the treatment of Mito is very much, she is treated as something to be protected, and I understand that that can be kind of exhausting sometimes. But to be fair, like, she's not an action hero, she's a chef. I don't know. I liked her character, and maybe that's my own internalized bullshit, but I don't entirely disagree with everything that this review says. I just think that it's a very neat perspective. Sorry, I keep making eye contact with the mime doll that I decided was too scary to put into the background of this video. Okay, moving on. G-Man1225 gave it half a star and said, I fucking hated everything about this movie. Terrible plot, shit acting, fuck-ass music, and just disgusting through and through. Can't believe the theme of this movie is incest. Okay, so Old Boy is, volume 2, of Park Chan-wook's Vengeance trilogy. Call me crazy, but I think the theme is actually vengeance. I think that this happens with Flowers in the Attic, too. Where if a story is well known for having incest in it, everybody goes, oh, the story's about incest. When I would argue that Flowers in the Attic is much more about generational trauma, and Old Boy is much more about vengeance. But if a movie has incest in it, that's all anybody's gonna be talking about. Continuing, whoever made this movie is a sick fuck. Almost fell asleep one time. I would rather read at Cheese reviews for hours, then watch this movie. Cinematic masterpiece, my ass. The only thing that wasn't shit about this film was the antagonist. He was kind of cool. That's beside the point. Why is everyone fucking their own family? This movie had me sick to my stomach the whole time. I hate this movie. Fuck it, fuck you. And I love Christopher Nolan! Oh my god. I didn't read the end of that review before I started reading it. This is a better plot twist than the movie. Speaking of the movie, they grind the plot to a stop so that they can explain exactly why these characters are fucking their family. Did you not get the answer? Did you forget it? You know, I expected some reviews where people would be like, this is truly vile, but like, damn. Eat Sandwich gave it half a star and said, shallow and uncompelling shark film with kind of cheesy, boring presentation. Can't believe this was recommended so highly. I find it compelling, and I'm sorry that you didn't. I hope that you find something that compels you more. I hate when I watch a movie and I really expect to like it, and I don't like it. So Eat Sandwich, you go do just that, and I hope you find another movie that you like. Livy gave it half a star and said, ban whatever this is. I, too, love banning films that I find to be deviant or morally terrible. Things always end well when people do that. Okay, I think this is another interesting one. Okay, so Z gave it half a star and said, I don't know if I'm missing something, but I doubt that it would make up for this experience. This movie was whack. Maybe I would have liked it if I found attempted rape to be funny, random violence to be enjoyable, and suffering with zero purpose to be anything but just hollow, and if I could overlook the main female character just being thrown around by a ridiculous plot with no agency, and a guy just being suddenly super powerful with no relevant training, and on top of that, just incest. I'm looking at reviews, jaws on the ground, because I don't get how this is seen as such a good movie. I get that it has some good shots, cinematography, and that it's disgusting and painful to watch. But people saying the plot is so good, please let me know why. What about the plot is good? This was uncomfortable. That's what it did well. Now tell me, what's the value in a movie just being uncomfortable and nothing else? I personally don't feel like there was any payoff to having watched this movie. I'm left with having been uncomfortable for 2 hours and the general sense that people just kind of suck. The monster analogy and whatnot, sure. But emotionally, I was not made to be invested, and I am just kind of glad it's over. You know, movies like this aren't for everybody, and that's okay. I think that this was meant to show that the search for vengeance can be extremely dehumanizing, and I agree that the ending is incredibly bleak and hollow, and it just makes you feel like people suck. I don't think that people are terrible. I think that vengeance makes people terrible. I think that that's the point of the movie, if anything. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and move on to the next film that I've picked out, which is The Hunchback of Notre Dame from 1996. Okay, so now we're in the weeds a bit, I think. This was another one of my favorite childhood movies, and it's far from perfect. The animation, incredible. The score, incredible. The gargoyles don't bother me as much as they do other people. The portrayal of Romani people. The movie certainly doesn't seem to think that racism is good, but it also portrays Romani people as, like, over-sexualized, barefoot, cutthroat stereotypes, and most of them are voiced by white people. Cool. But this film meant something to me as a kid, so now it's in my head forever. I will say I do prefer the stage show. They still didn't cast Romani folks, and it's also not perfect plot-wise, but I do like it better. As for the movie, I still think it's visually incredible, and the darker elements that I loved as a kid still hold up. When I went to Catholic school, I watched this movie so many times that I could just watch it in my head, like I memorized it frame for frame. Even though Frollo isn't a man of the cloth anymore, pussy shit, I still think he's a very formidable villain that just gets more horrible as you grow up and understand more about it. Okay, so predictions saying that this shouldn't be a kid's movie because it alludes to sex, rightfully pointing out the racism, and complaining about the gargoyles. Okay, sorry, now I'm ready to read the reviews. Had to wet my whistle first. Been doing a lot of talking. It's Arnold Palmer that I'm drinking, by the way. I'm not getting hammered 2 videos in a row. Okay, Arlen gave it a half star and said, cute VHS, W background movie for coding. You know, cool. I got nothing to say about that. Cool. You're right, it is a cute VHS. I know, because I own the VHS. Oh, shit, I should have gotten that out. Hang on. I could not find it in a timely manner. Okay, Ahmad Khalaf gave it half a star and said, awful movie, Hunchback didn't get the girl, hashtag ugly mofos lives matter. Yes, as a kid, I certainly wanted them to get together, mainly because I didn't care all that much about Captain Phoebus. He was just like a handsome block of styrofoam. He certainly didn't get the amount of personality that Quasimodo gets. But also, you know, I think that Lindsay Ellis said it best when she said that the fact that Quasimodo is still willing to help and be a part of Esmeralda's life even when he doesn't get to possess her is what sets him apart from Frollo. Frollo wants Esmeralda to be his and his alone, and Quasimodo accepts that that isn't what's going to happen, and that's okay. That's alright. And I think that it's just important to note that Quasimodo wants the best for them. Now, as an adult, I have the enlightened view that the three of them should have kissed. Oh, that one also has slurs in it. Fun. Magpie78, a pro, gave it half a star and said, God, tricked into watching this because of its good rating. Cringy, infuriating, the songs were boring and too long. I gotta disagree, but you do you. Worst part, boring, warbly, unmemorable songs. Again, I gotta disagree. Best part, gave me the opportunity to let my child know that ugly is a state of mind, monsters are found in what we do, not in how we look, and that some people do evil while spouting hypocrisy. Off to spend the evening trying to regain the hour and a half I just lost of my life. I think that it's really funny that this person said that they were tricked into watching it because of the good rating. I don't think that that was the point of the good rating. I think that a lot of people just like this movie. Okay, Aegoliant, I hope that this is a reference to Ungoliant from the Silmarillion, gave it half a star and said, I cannot stand the bastardized retelling of one of the greatest novels of all time. Hugo would be rolling in his grave. 0.5 out of 5. Listen, frankly, this movie has kind of jack shit to do with the book. The plot of Hunchback of Notre Dame is kind of incidental because that's not why Hugo wrote it. Hugo wrote it because he wanted them to fix up the Notre Dame Cathedral, and he wanted to drum up popularity for it. This was actually more of a work of historic preservation than it was a work of fiction. I always get a little bit snippy sometimes when people are like, this person would be rolling in their grave. Like, first of all, you don't know that. You don't know what they would like. One of the first bastardized retellings of The Hunchback of Notre Dame was an operetta written by Hugo. I don't know. I don't know what their preferences would be. Unless it's diametrically opposed to what the author wanted, I don't think that they would care as much as you seem to think. I know that I certainly wouldn't care. I love it when people reinterpret my work. I might get in my own head about it, especially if they don't interpret it the way that I intended. I might think, oh, did I do something wrong? But I think that I'm in the minority on that one. Or maybe I'm not. If you're a writer, sound off in the comments. Okay, so Wei Ka gave it half a star and said, I can't with this movie's tone. There is a hellfire scene followed by stupid gargoyles forcing a love triangle with the main girl, but there are so many things to adore in it, I can't fully hate it. That seems to be a very common attitude with this movie. And yes, the tone is insane. Going from the, like, racialized fetishization that the racialized fetishization that we're not supposed to like. There's some racialized fetishization that the audience is supposed to partake in, but going from the racialized fetishization that we're not supposed to like in Hellfire to, like they said, the dancing gargoyles is a bit of a tone switch. Oh gosh, it's got such a tone problem. So the pizza roll gave it half a star and said, please marry me lest I burn you alive. Frollo, probably. I think that I sort of always expect reviews to be explaining the rating given. I mean, that's usually why people are doing that, is that they are expounding upon the rating. And I don't think that Frollo is a creep is a reason to rate this low. The tone of this seems to be treating that like it's some sort of plot hole or flaw inherent to the movie, and it's just not. Like, yes, that is how the character feels. That is what the character is. Do you have any more to say about that? I feel this way about most movies. I wish people would just explain things in a very straightforward fashion. I feel like maybe I'm getting my expectations a little high for Letterboxd. Briley gave it a half star and said, this is genuinely the worst movie I've seen in a while, if not ever. Wow, that is a bold statement. The leading reason for that was the high expectations I had going into this movie that Clark described as a classic. The leader of the church is feeling lustful, so he burned down the entire city. He tried to burn a woman alive. Yes, those are plot points. They tried to kill the main character and hang him in front of everyone. That does not happen in this movie. Then the good guy poured molten metal all over the city. Yeah, Yeah, he did. Literally a dumpster fire of a plot. It kept getting worse and worse. This movie is so dark and it was advertised as a children's movie. I want to throw this movie in the trash and I will confidently say I will never watch this movie again. Do not watch this if you haven't seen it. 1 out of 10 for the One Good Out There song. Listen, if you were gonna like anything, I'm glad you liked that song because it's great. The leader of the church is feeling lustful, so he burned down the entire city. Yeah, that happened. It's not like we're supposed to think that that's a reasonable response. He is the villain. He tried to burn a woman alive? No one in the church has ever done that before. 8 brackets, gave it half a star, and said, looks really dramatic, then really shitty, then really dramatic, then really shitty again. Quite a lot. I can understand how, like, the ping-ponging tone can be a lot. Okay, this one's gotta be the best one to end on. Forever Nuding gave it half a star and said, this was horrible, OMG everything. The story, the racism, froyo guy, ugh, I hated this. Live your truth, Forever Nuding. Legend has it they're still nuding today. The next movie that we're going to talk about is Star Trek IV, The One with the Whales, from 1986. Okay, so it's actually called The Voyage Home, but I'm not calling it that. Nobody calls it The Voyage Home. It's not The Voyage Home anymore. Sorry, I know that you named it The Voyage Home. It's not called that anymore. It's The One with the Whales. This was, for me, the perfect end to the original series timeline. I know that Star Trek V has its defenders, and I do think that it's overhated in some ways, but number 4 is just the perfect cap on the series for me. It follows Admiral Kirk, the crew that helped him resurrect Spock. If you've heard that Spock dies in The Wrath of Khan, he does, but don't worry, he gets better. And Spock, who came back just a little bit off. The plot of this film is them going back in time to 1986 to save the whales, and I'm not kidding. Leonard Nimoy directed this. He got creative control for this movie and he just went whale mode. If you've watched Star Trek the original series, you'll know that there are some episodes like Trouble with Tribbles that get a little silly with it. This film is like one of those episodes, but film length. And it also has lots of Kirk and Bones and Spock looking longingly and lingeringly at each other. It also features some cameos from Spock's hot parents. Everybody give it up for Spock's hot parents. Yeah. Would. Oh, and if you're more into Spock than his parents, don't worry, we get a nice panty shot of him while he communes with Gracie the whale. This movie is just pure joy. It's so silly, and it's so full of love for people and life, but the threat is also kind of incomprehensible and speculative. It asks the kind of scary question, what if extraterrestrials have already been here? They just didn't communicate with us. And that rips. It's starting to rain, so you might hear that. Predictions, people saying this is too silly and not nearly as good as The Wrath of Khan. Ironically, also a movie about killing a whale. Being pissy that some of Spock's character development has been walked back, which I kind of get. And I can't think of a single other complaint. This film is perfect. Oh my god, this is such a good, this is so good. Drew Toothpaste gave it half a star. And said, my psychic told me to watch this, and I said you couldn't pay me to watch 4 Star Trek movies. She said, you only have to watch this one. Maybe it wouldn't be confusing for her because she's a psychic, but I don't even know who any of these guys are. You can for sure hear that. Well, as long as I'm louder, you can hear me better. So Drew Toothpaste, I gotta be honest, you had one of the worst viewing experiences, and I've done this to people before just because I was too excited to show them The One with the Whales, but like, truly, One with the Whales hits so much harder if you've watched a bunch of the original series episodes, and if you've watched The Wrath of Khan, The Search for Spock, probably also the motion picture, but you don't necessarily need to watch the motion picture to watch The Wrath of Khan. I need to know why your psychic recommended this. Dylan Rank gave it half a star and said, well, we found the 1986 movie floor. 3 movies in, and this was the first time I kept pausing to see how much I had left. Ferris and Top Gun hopefully are more in line with this year than this dredge. Thunder Applause gave it half a star. Directed and co-written by Nimoy in his last directorial duty, The Voyage Home is the conclusion to the mini-trilogy began in Wrath of Khan. The time travel doesn't make any sense. No, it doesn't, but time travel in Star Trek has never made any sense. Only serving to justify the 2-hour screed about saving the whales. Visiting San Francisco in the 80s could have led to a ton of great culture shock, but the humor only amounts to everyone but Spock implicitly understanding the lingo and cultural norms. To be fair, this is like ancient history to them, but also this is very misleading. Basically, everybody is out of place here. There's a great scene with McCoy complaining about the lack of advancements in medicine, but otherwise none of the other characters get the same treatment. I usually write spoilers, but unfortunately, there's nothing to spoil, owing to the lack of real conflict and no implications for their actions in the past. The crew gets their Enterprise back finally, so only the last maybe 10 minutes is worth watching. And the one character they brought back with them is never seen again anyway. I do wish that they would have brought Dr. Gillian Taylor back, because I love her. Gillian Taylor is this whale scientist. She's like a cetacean biologist, and she absolutely loves whales. They're everything she thinks about, they're everything she talks about. They try to, like, brush off something that they said and say, like, no, we didn't actually say that. We said something different. And she repeats back to them exactly what they said. And she says, I have a photographic memory. I can see words. And Kirk and Spock just give each other this look like, oh shit. The Rogue critic, a patron, gave it half a star and said, film has an unbelievably laughable plot with many plot holes and conveniences. It's a Star Trek movie. Script is mostly funny and clever. Storyline and its details are mostly thin and rushed. Another poor yet generally entertaining film in the series. Suffers further due to content. Rating F. The content's the best part. They're saving the whales. This movie is like a fan fiction, and it's awesome. I don't know, this movie just feels like a natural offshoot of some of the goofier parts of Star Trek to me. Logan A. Fondriest gave it 1 star and said, I need you to please just read a summary of what this movie is about so you can understand how silly of a premise this is. There is an episode in Star Trek the original series where Scotty gets possessed by the entity that was known on Earth as Jack the Ripper. The episode ends, by the way, with the entire crew getting absolutely hopped the fuck up. What I'm saying is that yes, the premise is silly, but it's no sillier than any of the other Star Trek premises. Okay, continuing. As bad as this movie is, it's not as bad as Star Trek Generation. I love whales, I do not love this movie. I love that Logan felt the need to say I love whales before that, as if saying I don't like a piece of film would be saying that he hates whales. Actually, I think some people would probably think that, so I guess, that's not that crazy. Francesca Madden gave it 1 star and said, I fell asleep, but it was the first Star Trek thing I've watched, and it was a thing for sure. This came out in a time when Star Trek had been part of the cultural zeitgeist for quite a while now, and the motion picture, a lot of people didn't like it because it was extremely slow. In many ways, the motion picture very much represents the long, beautiful boredom of living in space. And then The Wrath of Khan came along and everybody was like, oh my gosh, this is like a really cool revenge story, and it ended with the death of one of the main and fan favorite characters. Holy shit, we're paying attention to Trek in a way we haven't done in a while. And then Search for Spock was fine. That's my opinion on it. The whole thing with Saavik and the Search for Spock makes me uncomfortable, so I don't like watching it. The end scene of the Search for Spock is incredible, and I'm glad that I watched it if only to see the end scene, because it's genuinely oh my god. I can tell sometimes when they're trying to make me feel something by slowly fading in the theme of the original series, and you know what? It works. I'm not better than that. But by the time we get to the voyage home, this movie is not exclusively silly, but it is often silly. And I don't know, it was nice to see these characters get to, do some silly stuff again after 2 straight movies of grief and vengeance and strife and destruction. Honestly, it was nice to see everything come up Enterprise crew, okay? I'm not better than that either. Okay, Nate Dog 6969, great name, gave it 1 star and said, looks great on 4K. Movie itself is the weirdest one out of the ones I've seen. It's a Star Trek movie that mostly takes place on Earth, and for some reason there are dolphins. I don't think I saw any dolphins in this movie, but I'm sure that there were. They do go to a cetacean institute at one point. We're getting into the 1 star, so I don't think I'll read too many more, because if we're already in the 1 stars, that means that there's not nearly as many hateful reviews of this as I thought that there would be, which is also what happened when I read the reviews of the Muppet movie. It's almost like people love joyful art. So Josh H. gave it 1 star and said, this is the film where the franchise jumped the shark. Again, I feel the need to remind you that Spock got fucking resurrected in the last one. This is the film where the franchise jumped the shark. The first 10 minutes are promising, but it all quickly devolves into a schlocky mess with too much emphasis on cheesy, self-aware comedy. Star Trek would never. While the ecological message in the script does not fall on deaf ears, it's amazing to see how we went from Wrath of Khan to ... this. Okay, this might be Star Trek blasphemy, what I'm about to say, but I think that Khan is in many ways the Moriarty to Admiral Kirk's Sherlock Holmes. Moriarty was in 2 Sherlock Holmes stories, and the second one is the one that killed Holmes. Now, while Kirk doesn't die in The Wrath of Khan, Spock does, and in many ways that's kind of as good as Kirk dying, because wow, he doesn't take it well. Read into that however you will. But Moriarty is a strong enough character that he is remembered as like Sherlock Holmes's nemesis, even though he wasn't in that many stories. This is much like Khan. Khan was originally just a one-off villain from the series, and he was brought back, and he has like this burning hatred for Admiral Kirk. He hates him so fucking much and he wants him dead. I'm not disputing that The Wrath of Khan is a good movie. It is. And Ricardo Montalban really deserves his flowers for his performance in that movie. It's so Shakespearean. Also, not for nothing, he looks fantastic in that movie, but we already knew that. Just because it's a great movie does not mean that it is what every single other thing in Star Trek should be compared to. Not every bit of Star Trek is The Wrath of Khan, nor do I think should it be. I promise I didn't look at bad reviews of this movie beforehand. I just know how people are about The Wrath of Khan. Next movie is A Clockwork Orange from 1971. This movie was directed by Stanley Kubrick, which you also probably know. So you probably know what this movie is about, or at least you think you do. But if not, the movie follows Alex DeLarge. He doesn't have a surname in the book. It's kind of a joke, based off of a scene in the book, though. And he's this terrifying 15-year-old who has this gang. He's the leader of the gang. And every single night in this dystopian Britain, he and his gang go out and commit horrific acts of violence. But that's only the beginning of the story. It's more about how the government experiments on him to take his free will away. If you know anything about the movie, aside from the violence, it's probably this. So, hot take. This movie is good. I'm not as protective of this movie as I am of the book, which I enjoy more. I think that he's kind of cringier in the book, which I appreciate. But this movie's design, the performances, the score all rip. So my predictions for the reviews of this film are going to be complaining about how Kubrick was an asshole, which is entirely fair, calling this like depraved, disgusting, and violent, where it's really doing the Scarface thing where it front loads most of the violence to shock you, being angry that Alex gets a happy ending. People complain about Kubrick cutting out the last chapter of the book, which I do understand, but it's worth mentioning that Alex doesn't wind up back in prison in the book. He does ultraviolence again for a while. In fact, he's basically paid by the government to do it as part of a cover-up project, before realizing that it just doesn't, like, he doesn't care anymore. It doesn't give him what it used to. Oh, my fucking battery. Girl. Okay, I'm back. I should really invest in more than one battery. I was snacking and drinking tea while I was waiting for the battery to recharge, so if you see something in my teeth, keep that shit to yourself. Now, the very first one, by Kotzi the Cat, a patron, gave it half a star and said, if you like this, you are a sick person. God, I hate being right all the time. It's just so hard. You know, this attitude is really great for people like me who have pretty bad anxiety disorders and love making themselves feel bad about things. This movie is very fictional, and it will not let you forget it because of how stylized it is. So, I don't know. It's not hurting anybody, except for Malcolm McDowell, who got his eye scratched. Okay, so Izzy K2 also gave it half a star and said, I get it's to make you uncomfortable, but what actually is the point of the movie? I got 30 minutes in and quickly lost the will to live. It's disgusting. I don't see where it's going at all, and I don't want to. Stop the milk drinker hate. Never! Sometimes you gotta quit a movie partway through. My partner famously, I say, like everybody knows my partner, famously to me, my partner had to quit watching Psycho 2 halfway through because the way that they were treating Norman Bates made them so angry. And that's fair. Don't keep watching something if you don't like it. But saying, I don't understand where it's going when you didn't watch where it's going doesn't make any sense to me. So many of these are in French. The vile French slither their way in. Okay, so Horeb gave it half a star and said, why the fuck are they so British? Honestly, great question. I actually think that it's a really good idea to make them more British because it makes their evil so much more believable. Nui Elune gave it half a star and said, am I a fake cinephile if I say I didn't like this movie? First of all, not with a username like that. And second of all, no. You're allowed to like or dislike any kind of movie. Here's the thing, is that I'm kind of a film bro, and I'm aware of this fact, and I will never cease my penance walk. Prof Buttcrack gave it half a star and said, fuck this movie. The blueprint for incel culture wrapped in 2 hours of pretentious bullshit. Anybody who resonates with this garbage, go touch grass. I don't think at any point in time we were supposed to be like, that's good what that kid's doing. Many points in time, the film straight up spells out for you the moral. Being a terrible person does not negate your right to free will. One of the most famous scenes of the movie, when he's screaming in that chair with the eye thing that scratched Malcolm McDowell's cornea, during that scene, Alex is losing the only constructive thing in his life. And he, in fact, points out to them, he's like, please, please do not take one of the only enjoyable things I have left from me. Not only do they take away his violent urges, they also take away the one non-violent thing that he enjoys. I guess that's not true. In the movie, he has Basil the snake, but he doesn't get to take his snake to prison, unfortunately. The point of this movie is to see how much Alex can hurt, and then to see how much he can be hurt, and to try to wrap our minds around that, and try to think of, like, is there anything that somebody can do that would justify the government being able to do this to criminals? And of course, what happened? Oh my god, I just realized that one of the actors in A Clockwork Orange is 1000% in Peeping Tom. Sorry, I've watched Peeping Tom twice in the past week. I don't think that this movie is responsible for the way that people have failed to interpret it, is what I guess I'm trying to say. Dean the Big Bean gave it half a star and said, not a fan. Grotesque. Sweetheart B gave it half a star and said, men being deranged and insufferable. Yes. That is the movie. And some people can't vibe with that. The message of my refuting these reviews will never be, people should have liked this movie. They don't need to. ... gave it half a star and said, I didn't understand a shit. That's okay. That's alright. Oh boy. Kay gave it half a star and said, Stanley Kubrick was insane and should have been lobotomized after directing this garbage. Listen, I'm not a fan of Kubrick, the guy. He was pretty awful, famously. However, I think that it's important to this discussion to mention the fact that Stanley Kubrick was autistic. You know, if you watch the movie A Clockwork Orange or engage at all with the story of A Clockwork Orange and your conclusion is the maker should be lobotomized, I think you may have missed the point. But that's just me. That's just my 2 cents. I don't know. What do I know? Oh my god. Oh, this is such a good one to end on. Mike Bene gave it half a star and said, no way people actually enjoyed watching this. I do. Might be one of the worst movies I've ever watched. That's completely subjective. Tarantino officially has competition for weirdest director. If you meant weird as in the way that they direct the movie, I gotta disagree. If you meant weird as in the way that they treat fellow human beings, I can kind of get that. I really like weird directors. I like it when directors are weird. I like surrealism and stuff. Something tells me that this person wouldn't vibe with surrealism. I guess I just need to know what this person means by weird. I think Mike Bene needs to widen their scope a little bit. And that's okay. I need to widen my scope. Hell, I need to widen my scope. Last one. Just like last time, I have decided to end with a movie that isn't that good. So the last film on the docket is Transformers 1986. There we go. I have reincorporated the Stegosaurus. You're welcome. So for my birthday one year, I had a 1986 Leonard Nimoy double feature. During this double feature, we watched the one with the whales and this film, and let me tell you, whimsy abounded. Now, H. Bomber Guy did a far better explanation than I could ever do about why this movie really lasts, but I'll be honest, I just like it. The animation is amazing, and it frequently halts the plot completely still to do these AMVs to Stan Bush and Weird Al songs. The villain Unicron, also known as Discount Galactus, is played by Orson fucking Welles, and he's awesome. I love his theme, but I also love industrial music from the 80s, so that's not that shocking. If you go into this movie looking forward to hanging out with Optimus and the gang, don't. Instead, you get to hang out with this gay wad, his butch lesbian uncle, and his T-girl bestie. Leonard Nimoy plays Galvatron, and he's so cunty with it. My predictions for the reviews are people hating on Hot Rod, people joking about how Orson Welles was fat, talking about how annoying Blur and the junk bots are, which, I mean, I'm not gonna argue. Curtis Brew, a patron, gave it half a star and said, I don't know if this can even be considered a movie. I mean, I can't even argue. Matthias gave it half a star and said, maybe without the garbage music playing all the time, I could have been something. I'm sure he means it could have been something. Me, when I watch a movie from the 80s and the music sounds like it's from the 80s. Chile gave it half a star and said, I thought this was gonna be the one with Megan Fox. Once again, rating a movie poorly just for not being something, or for what it is. Okay, Sam gave it half a star and said, how do you make a female cartoon robot sexy? Why would you make a female cartoon robot sexy? I assume you're talking about Cup. No, I know that they're talking about RC. And the reason that she actually looks like that is because she got a frame change. The woke agenda. Also, they made all of the male robots sexy, so they had to catch up. If you think that it's weird that RC has boobs, wait until you see Shockwave. Froopy gave it half a star and said, I've never seen scale so off in my life. This is true. Tatters King gave it half a star and said, Reaganite slurry combined with hair metal. I mean, the only reason that they were able to make the Transformers series, it's basically a commercial, is because of Reagan, easing up on the regulations for advertising to children. So, it's definitely Reaganite, I would say. I'm not refuting that. But what's with the hair metal hate? Why are we hating on hair metal? Oh, it's cheesy and it's silly and therefore it's bad. Shut up. Phoenix Guy 99 gave it half a star and said they killed Optimus. I'll never get that Optimus-y. Well, you would know if you watched season 3, I think. You would actually know that they bring Optimus back twice. Once as a weird zombie and then once as a normal guy. You will probably just not get that Optimus-y because I think he's a little too busy. Okay, Lucille Ferrer gave it half a star and said, I'm gonna be generous and give this half a star for the sole reason that we got to see Starscream get vaporized on screen. It's also the best moment in the whole movie. Who dares interrupt my coronation? This is no coronation. This is bad comedy. To be clear, I love Starscream, but he blows. He sucks. He's so annoying. Okay, this seems like a good last one for the video. Butch, sorry, I only got one thing on the brain. Birch, a patron, gave it 1 star and said, major spoilers, little smiley cat face. What the fuck? I was so excited to watch this. I genuinely thought it was gonna be a 5-star movie. What the fuck do you mean Ratchet and Ironhide die immediately, Optimus Prime dies immediately, Starscream dies immediately, and Megatron becomes fucking ugly? I'm distraught. I'm angry. Fuck you, Raceland. If you see this, you are an evil being in person, and I hate you, and I can't believe you tell me Optimus Prime had a big role. Why would you do this to me? I fucking hate you. I'm distraught, everyone. DNI. Made Caden watch with me. Great review, 10 out of 10. That was basically everybody's reaction in theaters. Yeah, I would like to close out by talking about the nature of bad movies and giving some context as to why I love reading these reviews. When I really, really hate a movie, it's usually because it was made with slave labor, or killed a live shark, or because it's clear that it was made from a deeply hateful and awful perspective. I will never, ever hate a movie for the sole reason that it's poor quality. When I watch feminist masterpiece Frankenhooker, do I believe that the mannequin legs that Jeffrey has in his lab are real legs? No. When I watch misogynist masterpiece Reanimator, do I believe that Dr. Hill's head is actually a severed head and not just the actor sticking his face through a table? No. These movies are, in many ways, quite bad. But so much love and effort clearly went into making those movies, and I enjoy them both greatly. Johnny Mnemonic, the movie with this face in it, I will never ever hate that movie. It's not good, I don't think, but it was bad on a grand scale. A lot of effort clearly went into it. So yes, some movies are bad, whatever that means, but art always has a right to exist, good or not. I'm actually writing a book right now, Peak Unemployed Slipping into Madness activity, and I'm really afraid to get too invested into this book. But I'm doing it anyway because I need to. I would have lost it already if I weren't working on it. And that's what art is for. So when I read bad reviews, I'm not looking to get angry, I'm not trying to rage bait myself, I'm looking to introduce myself to some perspectives that I may not have. I'm looking to be introduced to the movie's flaws so that I can consider the whole picture. I like having a well-rounded understanding of a movie complete with its faults. There's very few things that I've seen that I would consider perfect. So I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you enjoy any of the movies that I was looking at, I hope that reading those reviews didn't make you too mad. Follow me on Tumblr if you want. I'm embarrassed to say I'm there way more often than here. You know what? No, I'm not embarrassed about it, okay? I hope to be here more often. I should be here more often. I'm unemployed. Stay safe, take care of each other, love bad art, and I will catch you later.